I agree. And I'm just going to go round the cast here now. Thank you all for joining in. And I'm going to introduce you just sort of with a name and a little intro, but I'm going to let you all, if you like, as I say your name, just give us about 60 seconds on yourself, bearing in mind there's that sort of 2-second delay. And if I might, I'm going to start with you, Heather. Equidium, we really want to hear a lot more about this. At the very core and purpose of Equidium, as much as I understand, Heather, is health equity. Is that right? Can we take it over to you?
Yes, absolutely, Susan. And I'll go ahead and wave at you in the audience. It's lovely to be here. My name is Heather Flannery. I am the founder and chief executive officer at Equidium Health, where we are seeking to deliver health equity and data liquidity powered by Ethereum. We are a Web3 technology company that has converged blockchain-based innovations with advanced privacy technologies and data decentralization in order to create innovative new business models that we believe will close the digital divide, accelerate the pace and inclusion of clinical trials, and deliver an enormous amount of value by being core to creating a new data economy in this exciting time. So it's an honor to be here with all of you and my esteemed co-panelists.
Heather, thank you. Wonderful. Really does deserve a little round of applause. So I'm giving you one there and sending those hearts over to you, Taria Stevens from Mission Impact, which I understand to again be very much around the word critical, this time business critical Web3 training, learning and development of personal growth. And again, particularly for women, but I know, Taria, you're mighty inclusive. So over to you, Taria Stevens.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for having me. This is an incredible opportunity to be among amazing panels. So hello everyone. Yes, I am the co-founder for Mission Impact, and we are women-focused leadership development program, and actually just launching next month our first cohort. And we are, like you said, we are focusing on the business critical Web3 training, personal growth, and very much also impact, how we can drive positive impact in the real world by using emerging technologies. And in addition to that, our incredible initiative is also called Women of the Future. And this is a book that we are featuring 100 global women around the globe who are leading the way in the Web3 and metaverse space. So very excited to be here.
Oh, wow. Definitely a round of applause, particularly for that book, Women of the Future and Web3. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much. And I really am excited to welcome a good friend of ours, Ellie. Ellie, how are you? Ellie, who founded many things, but particularly today, Conspicuous. Ellie, can I take it over to you to tell us about why you think certifying a safe and secure Web3 is so important?
Thank you so much, Susan, for the warm welcome. And yeah, so I'm the co-founder of Conspicuous. My wonderful co-founder, Dani, should be somewhere in the audience. So I just want to acknowledge her because I wouldn't be able to do this without her. So can we maybe give a little round of applause for Dani? Amazing. Yay. I think everyone loves to hear. So yeah, I mean, my journey is really, started from a personal mental health, mental illness journey that kind of goes generations above me. And it's about, isolation and being alone and trying to fit it in groups and with people, but not having the skills and that's been a really tough journey for me to insert myself socially. And what I've noticed is, the power of a community, of a safe and loving community that can love you even if you mess up a bit, that can love you even when you're feeling down. And I think Web3 is all about communities. Everything in Web3 is built around communities. And what we want to do is make sure that those communities have fun, those communities create true meaningful bonds between each other, and they're also safe spaces to build a network, build friendships, and that's what we're all about.
Wonderful. And it's so it's particularly worth acknowledging that, you know, you stand here and every day, Ellie, to tell a story of experience, because as we know, when we hear raw and real experiences, it can often change us too, because it touches us. Often we can relate to an experience told, even if it's not exactly the same. So thank you so much for sharing your heritage in such a raw and loving way. Which takes me over to you, Adriana Soto Ospina. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, my dear Adriana. So Progressius, this is really important, isn't it? Because you're looking at offering mental health for women in gestation, pregnant women, particularly, you know, who, but at very early access, at their very early stage of this, you know, wonderful process of giving life, but of course can be so topsy-turvy in many ways. Adriana, are you there? Let's have a look. Are you around, Adriana? Can you see her, Sharad?
I can't, so maybe we move on to the next panelist for now.
She's here on the stage
Yeah,
with us, but if she's on mute. Adriana, you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, she's on mute.
Okay. Okay, thank you both very, very much. Well, we've got you here, Adriana, and we love having you here. So thank you so much. We'll give you ample time to chat more later, because now I'm going to introduce Kimberly Williams, who's an innovation leader, an investor, and very much an interest maker and a change maker in Web3, coming to us from, you know, a Microsoft portal. So Kimberly, are you there?
I am. Hello, everyone. I'll wave up here on the stage as I believe I show up here. Get my waving. I believe I'm showing up here as Metafire, which is my online identity, which is another one of these pieces of beautiful chaos when combining in real life with Web3 and the metaverse is having multiple identities. So this is me in the lab coat. I am here as an ambassador to Web3 initiatives, and what I'm hoping to achieve in this ambassadorship is inspiring other women to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Web3 is a complex space. We're all still trying to figure it out. Explore, take risks, and join the community to bring diverse voices to the foundation, the development, and success of Web3 future. This is why diversity and inclusion is so important, is bringing that diversity of thought, diversity of experiences to help build that robust future.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. And I'm loving that, you know, how to be uncomfortable with being, or how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, I almost sort of say, you know, how to turn your fearfulness into fearlessness and really, really bring out your true power. So just before we move on, Adriana, are you there? And thanks for the wave, my dear Kimberly. Adriana, are you able to unmute, or otherwise I've got heaps of questions here. Adriana. Okay, well, I'm Sharad. I'm going to move on, and Adriana, you just give me a poke anytime that you'd like to chat. And so, audience, there's 29 of you there, 30 of you there now. Thank you all so much. As we're going to move into our questions, we're going to give you a little dance panel. Let's give our audience a little movement. a little dance to show them that we truly are awake and we're ready for them. I like those moves from Sharad particularly. And here we go. Now, Kimberly, can I come back to you, Kimberly, in your lab coat? You talked of diversity and inclusion there. You know, these are terms that are, you know, been around for, I don't know. I mean, I first moderated a leadership panel. Actually, it was Women in Leadership about 8 years ago, where the topic was diversity and inclusion. And even then, I found the terms very broad and often misused and indeed overused. Kimberly, what's your lens on the words diversity and inclusion? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, for me, I think what we're seeing is an evolution, actually, of what D&I, diversity and inclusion, means and what it has meant. I think earlier, and I'll maybe think, you know, 10 years or even a little further back, but I think diversity and inclusion was about creating equality, right? It was about creating opportunity to level the playing field, have equal representation of men versus women. I shouldn't say versus, men and women, or across underrepresented categories. And I think having those doors open provided opportunity to then have this evolution of focus on diversity of thought and diversity of experience. And that's where I feel like D&I is today. I think there's still some residual about finding equilibrium across various representations, but we do that in effect by embracing diversity of thought and diversity of experience. I myself am an innovation leader, and that's what's key to driving innovation, is finding ideas from places that are unexpected, finding ideas from places that aren't your experiences. And that's what we have to do to be innovative. I think the other thing, I'll maybe even get a little ahead of myself, but I'll add, you know, change. A lot of people will say change is constant, and that's true. Well, change is the new constant, and that's true, but it's not fully true, because change is not constant. We're seeing change happening at a faster and faster pace, especially with the evolution of technology, and we have to be innovative in order to keep up with that change. And that's where I think diversity and inclusion is key, not only to the success of businesses, but how we develop society around those changes, how we build community, how we build Web3.
Well, thank you so much for that kickstart, Kimberly. I feel it's a perfect portal for you, Heather, to take over here. Yeah, here we are at this sort of portal of Web3. How does that sort of bridge us into healthcare and health equity? Over to you, Heather.
Thank you, Susan. There are two areas where I am very particularly focused, and one is on the diversity and inclusion for AI model training data and the generalizability of artificial intelligence models as they are applied in healthcare and life sciences. So I'm going to address that first. Secondly, it has to do with participation of diverse research subjects in clinical trials and access to clinical research as a care option for underrepresented populations. So thinking about it from an ed perspective, we have a major problem in that large-scale artificial intelligence utilities have been deployed in healthcare delivery environments comprehensively. The training data used to develop those AI models was largely pulled from electronic health record systems and claims data systems. What that means is that populations who are underrepresented, underserved, vulnerable, and who have lacked historically and presently access to care, that those populations are underrepresented electronic health record system data and claims data. Therefore, any AI models that are developed using that data set means that they may not be generalizable to the whole population we seek to serve. And there is even a nightmare scenario where institutional racism is in fact enforced and accelerated inadvertently because we are speeding up processes that are based on data that doesn't represent the population we seek to serve. This has already been proven and demonstrated to be the fact in lawsuits that large parties have lost that have caused AIs to have to be rapidly pulled from production. But my passion is creating new models where ethical, trusted, and unbiased artificial intelligences can be trained and our new next generation Web3 environment. And then the second item I wanted to briefly touch on is on equity and inclusion and diversity in research subjects in clinical trials. There are new and accelerating regulatory changes in multiple jurisdictions around the world, requiring pharmaceutical companies to meet diversity and inclusion targets in their research subject recruitment in clinical trials. Actually achieving this is difficult, extremely difficult, for exactly the same reason that that I mentioned a moment ago about inclusion using claims data. If the research subjects are underrepresented in care delivery, then it is very, very difficult to reach them from a clinical trial recruitment perspective. So for this reason, diversity and inclusion in science and research means moving clinical trials that can reach more patients, vulnerable patients, where they are, removing transportation barriers, other access to care barriers, and actually getting clinical research as a care option built into safety net care delivery programs and outside of only large research institutions. So those are a couple of concrete mechanisms that we focus on.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's everyone's giving you a big clap there. And I can't quite see Ellie on my screen, but Ellie, I'm sure that was a lot of that was music to your ears, wasn't it? I mean, unprecedented or underrepresented in healthcare. Do you want to take that underrepresentation storyline and bring it right back into your experiences and indeed into data security? Over to you, Ellie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think underrepresentation has a reason. You know what I mean? For instance, if women are underrepresented, it's because for ages and ages we would have to take care of children and we wouldn't work. So then all of a sudden that shifts and, we can be included now and we have to be included now. So there's this kind of historical weight, and I think it's quite similar with, neurodivergence and mental illness. So those are individuals that wouldn't, usually be able to function, in a group, in a society. And it's about kind of welcoming them for me, but also making sure that they get the proper handbook to communicate with others. You know what I mean? Because from my experience, I see that I lack communication skills. I lack skills. I lack the knowledge of myself, the knowledge of my triggers. And for me, it's a learning process of having the rule book of how to deal with people and then going into situations with kind of loving people. But I think it's so important to educate ourselves on that. And as you guys were mentioning, representation in clinical trials, representation in all of the different spaces. It's true that when you test in medicine and you test it on mostly men, like it is the case sometimes, it would be nice to have kind of equal representation. So I think that is really important. And the healthcare industry, the way I see it from a patient's perspective too. And when I talk about the healthcare industry, I talk mostly about mental health. And so I know that for me, it's been a journey of, for instance, I go to a doctor and I tell him what's going on with me, and he says there's nothing wrong with you. Or, I have a suicide attempt and I land at the hospital and the lady says, oh no, you're normal. You just need to make better friends. You just need to get it together. And so, that also means like representation, like for people to understand what you're going through and be able to give you the right medication, not to over medicate you, not to under medicate you, to have that kind of compassion and empathy that Daniela always talks about, in the sense that we can't always fix other people's lives, but we can always be compassionate, inclusive, and looking at difference with curiosity and acceptance, rather than looking at difference as, a threat. And for women, what that means, in the office, I always worked in very male environments, and it's true, the banter is around sports, and I can kind of feel like I'm left out because I don't get to play around and joke around with the guys, and I need to find my own way to joke around with the guys. And I think it's really, really important to be mindful of that in the healthcare industry in general, but also in the mental health industry. And I think it starts by educating, general practitioners, as to someone who's facing, mental health challenges. I don't look crazy, you know what I mean? But you don't need to look crazy to be a danger to yourself. So I think it's really about education and tailoring and compassion and inclusion, making space for difference. So I don't know if that answers your question, I hope.
I think it answers the question and some. I mean, it really fuels some real conversation there, doesn't it? And I'm really not sure whether to go to Taria or Adriana. Yes, a big clap for that. Thank you so much. And particularly because a lot of it, Ellie, is from your own personal experience. But actually, Taria, I think I will come to you, and talk about, the underbelly of Mission Impact, which is training and development, particularly learning and development, lifelong learning, I should think, particularly in the Web 2 space. So I'm going to pose a specific question, and to just ask you how diversity and inclusion has impacted your career to date, and indeed what you're doing about whatever you've experienced to fold it into the programs that Mission Impact will be delivering and or is delivering. So over to you, Taria. Have we got audio? Still not yet. Okay, so not to worry. Now that was a big question, and I'm wondering, however, Adriana, could you take it? So how has diversity and inclusion impacted your career growth, and how are you folding that ethos and value into Progressus, particularly as you're focusing on the mental health of women in gestation? Over to you.
Hello. The question is for me?
Adriana.
Yes. Do you hear me?
We do. You look gorgeous in your turquoise.
Thank you. Sorry. You could say again? You could repeat the question, please?
Well, Adriana, take it away as you hear it, really, from what your colleagues have been talking about. It really is, how has diversity inclusion been experienced by you in your career growth, and how are you folding that learning into the value of Progressus, which takes care of the mental health of pregnant women? Over to you.
Okay, perfect. So diversity, okay, I experienced that in different fields, because I work with pregnant women. But in the other side, I am a startup founder. So in technology, for example, for startups, actually is it's just a few women actually who are leading startups, especially in science and technology, because almost everyone is male. But is sometimes, for example, when I attend networking events and everything, is a lot of men and just a few women. But I saw with the time, I was seeing more and more women uh, founding startups and interesting in technology, in healthcare, for example. And that is good. I think that we need more people in that field because when you are a co-founder, it's not just the knowledge that you have because your degree, your career is you must to have a different behavior. The behavior is related about how aggressive you are in business, how risky you are. According to some research, the problem about how we don't have enough women founding startups is related for actually women we take a little less risk than men. That is one of the difference because when you are running a business, actually you must take a lot of risk. So men actually take more risk than women. So that I think that is related about a lot of cultural issues because in our culture, actually women have a specific pattern. So it's good if you are a doctor, a professional, if you have a degree in science, that is good. But at the same time, at the time that you want to run a business, you must to have more than that. It's not just your degree, you must to take risks. And sometimes our culture, is don't allow women to take risks because actually women are less risky. We think more about the things twice, three times, before action. So that is one of the things that I think that could increase the diversity in women co-founders in startups fields. I think that it's important to change our mindset and try to take more risks and try to okay, I am not saying about just jump in the middle of nothing, but I think that maybe our mindset, our female mindset is related about more conservative things. So taking risks and open our mind, I think that is a good thing to increase the diversity in that field. Okay, but in other hand, what my startup works, we we work with pregnant women, decreasing the risk to have a premature labor. And this is very important for everything, especially for empowered women, because when a woman have a premature baby, actually that put the woman in risk about everything because actually this woman must to quit the job or have a long maternity leave because she needs to stay in home with the baby. And if you are a low income woman, that affects a lot the economic security of your home. So it's very important to prevent premature labor, especially in low-income women, to try to preserve, the equality rise, especially in the in the workforce, because
You are so right, my dear Adriana. You're so right, Adriana. I think, sorry to cut in there, but you're stressing so many great points. And I really feel that we want to applaud you. So let's give you a great round of applause there, particularly because of, your efforts on focusing those of us that, do give life literally, but so that indeed then nurtures the new life in a very, so young children come into a much more healthy environment. And it's just also terribly important. And really, Heather, I'd like to come back over to you if I could, back to this health equity beacon that you're flying and holding at Equidium, and really talk about how you sense the short, medium, and even the longer term consequences for Web3 if we ignore diversity and inclusion. Can you take that, Heather?
Sure, I'm happy to, Susan. Thank you. So in the short term, I believe if we ignore equity and inclusion in healthcare, we're going to put in motion something that is a repeat of the last generation of new technology at the healthcare and life sciences industry, especially in provider organizations adopting chronic health. What ended up happening was that a digital divide was created and unintended consequences worsened systemic problems instead of lessening them. Using ethical design frameworks and human-centered and inclusive design processes at the beginning, as we are conceptualizing the way that Web3 can impact healthcare, is absolutely critical in the short term. If we fail to do that, what we have learned from history is that there will be unintended consequences, and that those can layer on top of previous unintended consequences. So this is an opportunity where in the short term, right now, we must be intentional in our actions and understand that health technology changes healthcare, that it is not some separate island, but it is the way that healthcare is delivered. In the midterm, by failing to address diversity and inclusion, it will mean that the emerging economy for health data that Web3 can allow individuals to take advantage of will not be available to populations that are the most vulnerable and probably the most in need of being able to have economic participation in the value creation from the data about them. There is already a very large data economy that is happening in Web 2. That information is de-identified, brokered, and brokered again by intermediaries who do not have any mechanic or ability to include data subjects in this economy. In Web 3, we have the ability to be deliberately inclusive and to enforce the wishes and intentions in a way that is culturally sensitive and jurisdictionally confined on how individual data subjects can become empowered, dignified participants in a massive new economy. If we fail to include diversity and inclusion in those priorities today, what we will be doing more when it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. I didn't mean to chip in, but I sort of lost the audio. I mean, this is so critical. Thank you so much. Lots of claps for you, which really sort of takes us folding in what Adriana was stressing about risk-taking. And, you know, we've really got to find the positive embrace of taking the risk out of risk-taking and leaving behind the baggage of Web 2 and bringing in, you know, the openness and the luggage into Web 3. I am interested, however, and I'm going to hand this over to Kimberly, if you wouldn't mind taking this. And this isn't a criticism, it's more a critique of something you've said there, but that's bringing it into that Web 3 is in a position to, inverted commas, enforce let's say, guidelines or way of working around diversity and inclusion, around data collection, around all sorts of things that are very personal to us and very much feeding our professional lives too. So Kimberly, if we were to move that over to you, what do you recommend, Kimberly, that we do to promote diversity and inclusion in Web3 that isn't enforced, but actually is on a platform of what our friend Jamie Brett says is digital economic justice? Over to you, please, Kimberly.
Yes, thank you. I think there's a lot of opportunity to essentially to be spokespersons. I think especially for women and leading in a new technology space, it's about getting out front, having your voice heard, showing other women or other people who might not normally step up and into the space that they can, that they have the right to be in the space, that they have the confidence to enter the space, even without, a significant amount of background. We're all learning this space together. Web3 in some ways is not new from the perspective of there have been people working. There've been a small group of people who've been working on it for, almost a decade, but it's to the general population extremely new and more complex because there are more people getting involved. And I think that complexity is scary, and particularly in a field where women and perhaps other underrepresented groups have not traditionally had a representation. And I think this is the opportunity to do that. And we as leaders can take advantage of forums, as an example, this panel that we're doing today, to demonstrate for other people that they can participate. I think in terms of how do we include diversity and inclusion without rules? I think it's again about showing leadership and showing the diverse types of leadership. It's not even just about male versus female and underrepresented, but different experiences that people bring to the table, different, I'll say, emotions. I think as I was thinking through some of our topics today, one of the things that kind of came to the forefront to me was empathy. Empathy is becoming a growing, leading attribute to leaders. And empathy has traditionally been thought of as a female characteristic. And so I'm looking forward to this Web3 space as an opportunity to break these boundaries, that men can also have the same empathy, I think, that women have historically been credited with, and that we all have a right to be in the space and build the foundation.
Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, very, very much. You've got some more claps there. That was awesome. And it sort of makes me sort of feel that indeed, we're not really looking at masculine, male or female, or whatever we like to consider ourselves comfortable with, but are we really not looking at the energies of masculine and feminine, just taking that yin and yang and how they confuse together and create some equilibrium in Web3. So Sharad, I know you often don't mind me throwing the ball, but there's a ball to throw at you. What's your take on Web3, particularly in healthcare, diversity and inclusion and women? Over to you, Sharad.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. I want to make 2 quick points. First one of the pillars of Web3, in my opinion, is the concept of transhumanism. For those who are not familiar, transhumanism is a belief that technology can solve any problem. And a very good example of this is DNAVERSE, because they are transferring DNA data into the metaverse by creating unique art pieces. And technology can be a game changer. It can change the world. And I applaud DNAVERSE for being right at the forefront and using technology, to make it a better world. Second point I want to talk about, thank you, Javier. The second concept of Web3 that I like to talk about is that Web3 is not all about technology. Web3 is a mindset, and all leaders in the space need to shed that Web 2 mindset and gravitate towards the Web 3 mindset, which is of collaboration, not of competition. And today's event that we are having is a very good example of collaboration, because we have people from all parts of the globe in one room. And I'm loving this conversation. So I do want to applaud all our panelists on stage, and the audience, I think, will join me in giving them a clap.
Thank you, Sharad, and I join you as well, but my clap's sort of not working presently. But Sharad, you know, you've asked the audience to do some clapping there. I think it's time to ask the audience for some points or some questions. Does anybody there want to, what do you think, Sharad? Can you help navigate that?
Yeah, I think we can take a few questions from the audience. So if you can just raise your hand perhaps then and unmute yourself. Our panelists would love to take your question.
Stand up and let's see you.
Yeah, or just raise
Any
your hand
questions?
perhaps.
And if nobody gets up, I'm gonna, who's that? Should we choose someone, Sharad?
I think they can unmute themselves and then ask a question. Juan, can the audience members unmute themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody can just basically either raise your hand or just unmute yourself directly and ask away.
And actually, Juan, you're obviously able to speak. Have you got anything to say to us about how we should promote D&I in Web3? Over to you.
Well, actually, that's a great question. We are facing. I mean, let me get on the stage so everybody can see me. Sure.
That's okay. Oh, there you are. Okay.
No, actually, that's a great question, and I wanted to throw that question before the audience. We are facing the problem with the data usage, right? We're coming from Web 2, where many companies, I wouldn't say all of them, but maybe 99%, that abusing of the data pool, data mining, right? That's where the money is coming from. And obviously, we always get this question of, okay, this is DNA. This is not that your login password or something. This is really personal. This is biological. How you can ensure that with Web3 technology, our, I would say, data in this case is going to be safe. And that's what was a big question that was popping in our minds all the time. How do we encourage people to take a DNA sample kit so we can use it, but at the same time we maintain that safe, anonymous, and we ensure that this is not going to get commercialized, right? And this is one of the problems that we have seen lately a lot. Actually, there are many news from other companies doing this. So the big question in this case is how any project that is involved in this space is going to be dealing with data, regardless if it's DNA or not. So what we're trying to do is to ensure as much as we can that the partners and the collaborations we open and we working with, they follow the same, I would say, they're like-minded. They're just ensuring that the data is going to be safe. They're going to be stored under regulations and in particular in a particular facility, but at the same time they are signing up by default that our data is not going to get used by them, and the users are going to be always having the option to opt in or opt out depending on what are the options or what are the possibilities, right? And this is for me one of the tipping points of Web3, how we will envision this going forward from here. That's as Sharad and Susan well pointed out at the beginning, we are trying to use DNA as one of the key for the metaverses. It is not a simple mission. We have our vision long term for the future, which is, for example, all of us are here together and we are not sure who is a human, right? And our ultimate vision is to say, okay, we want to use DNA as your human verification. So we all could have like a blue tick on top, or like a wearable that is going to be identifying as a human, as opposed to AI and bots, right? Because we could actually be sitting today here with bots and we don't know. And we are just at the beginning of this space. I mean, we're talking about inclusion and diversity.
Yeah, well, keep on trying, please, Javier and Juan, and all of you on stage and in the room. Absolutely. My dear Sharad, do you want to go out, fish out to the audience once more, or should we come back onto stage?
Yeah, I think if anybody else from the audience has a question, we are happy to answer. You just have to unmute yourself.
Please don't be shy.
This is Heather Flannery. I just have to say goodbye and thank you, everyone. You are all wonderful. Bye.
Oh, merci beaucoup, Heather. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for being here.
You too.
Thank you, Heather.
Okay, well, Sharad, I mean, audience, don't be shy, but, feel free to come in. But, Ellie, I wonder if you could take this for us. Juan was sort of saying there just how data use, from Web 2 already comes with a headache, a challenge of its security, that all that commercialization from data mining, etc., etc. And of course, all the algorithms and everything that sort of dance in our Web 2 world. How do you feel about this as you're, with Conspicuous, really certifying these safe and secure spaces? Can you speak into that for us, Ellie?
Yeah, I'd love to also, touch upon a little bit what you guys were saying with the feminine attributes and the masculine attributes, and it doesn't really matter whether it's a woman or a man, but I still feel like there's studies that have proven that when they change the name of a brief from a strong assertive man who's leading to a strong assertive woman who's leading, what the studies found is there was a clear difference. So they thought that they were each competent. So for the man and the woman, people would say, okay, they're competent, but then they would say the man is likable and the woman is unlikable. So there's this thing, of being a woman, but also being a leader and having to carry a brand and having to build a business and having to build a team and having to assert ourselves as, hey, this is what we're trying to do. Can we have some place? And I feel like that's pretty hard. I've been called things like emotional, aggressive, and my male counterparts have been displaying, similar traits, and they're like, wow, he's a strong leader. So I feel like there's that thing. And for me, having especially an avatar, some places like a male avatar is helpful. And on the flip side, in other places, it's a lot easier to be a woman. So, I found that it's a double-edged sword. It's better to be a woman in some respect. It's not better to be a woman in other respects. So it all depends. And for the data, well, what we're trying to certify, it's more of a pledge. It's more of a pledge that a project, is taking certain steps to be safe, to be inclusive. We can't really, determine the outcome because those communities are very open. And definitely, data, we're gathering data. The companies that I know that operate in the metaverse are gathering data. It's no longer really email addresses. Now it's more wallet addresses. But, if you go to a metaverse event like this one today, they could do a heat map and see who was there and see the wallets that connected and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of analytics to be done within Web3. And I think, it's for me, it's a bit of a second chance. For instance, if you connect your MetaMask to Facebook in a bit when they integrate NFTs, all of your wallet will be linked to your Facebook profile that is linked to your entire life. And so I think it's on us to double check, like, where are we clicking? What are we connecting to? I want my wallet to be secret, a certain wallet. So I think we have more agency over our data, and we get to choose the actors. In social media, I have to go to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and it's most of it is ruled by Meta. But I think in Web3, there's a lot more choice. And I think you need to know yourself, your philosophy, what you stand for, and then you can find the projects and find the community that resonate with that. And you will make mistakes, as we get to know people, oh, I trusted this person and they betrayed me, or, oh, I didn't trust this person, but they turned out to be great. It's really a matter of kind of evolving in this space. But the data, I think we just have to watch, how it goes and stay vocal as to be careful with your data. But I'm definitely super curious to see how, that data side will evolve.
That was really quite interesting. Thank you very much, because, what came to me there was know yourself first. And indeed, the banks have always had this, for long since had the NYC, know your customer, and other marketeers in other industries then adopted that NYC. But, know yourself first. That's such great, that's such a great piece of luggage to carry into Web3. Thank you, Ellie. And actually, I feel that sort of, I just want to double check that Taria, can you get on audio yet? Otherwise, watch out, Kimberly, I'm coming over to you. Taria, are you there?
Susan, Taria, actually, I had to excuse her because she's traveling and she got a problem with the connection. And she tried to restart the computer, but she couldn't manage to come back. And she asked to be excused from dropping out so suddenly.
Okay, no worries. I'm just checking in there. So thank you for letting us know, and bless you, Taria, if you are listening in later. Kimberly, are you ready to take the baton there then?
I'm
particularly ready. Yeah, great. So anything of what you've just heard, but particularly this know yourself. And then I wondered as well, can you give us a glimpse into the future? Over to you, Kimberly.
Yeah, these are great questions. Thank you. So I think getting to know yourself, it's a really interesting dichotomy coming into the Web3 space. And I think this dichotomy existed in Web 2, but it's especially prevalent in Web 3, where we're choosing between anonymity and full transparency, right? When we think of cryptocurrency and crypto exchanges and wallets, a lot of the purpose around that was creating transparency, creating logs that could live forever, and document those transactions. But then there's the other space around anonymity, and I mean, even our avatars, and this is one of the things I kind of struggled with in even creating my avatars. Am I creating myself, like what I look like in real life, or am I creating what I want to be? And of course, and actually here in Spatial, I'm somewhat limited, so it's probably as close as I could get to what I look like in real life. But still, it's that concept of who are we in Web3? Because we have this option to either be a digital twin and simulate ourselves as we are in the real world, or to be something completely different and outside of ourselves to sort of build this other side. So I think it is an interesting kind of bringing that back to mental health also, is knowing yourself, having the comfort and confidence to be who you are or who you want to be when you're kind of thinking about that dichotomy of how do you want to represent yourself. And I would love to get to a point where we don't have to choose, where we are comfortable with representing ourselves in the metaverse as we are in real life. But I think, it's kind of fun to step outside and be something else. When I look into the future, so I think before I speak broadly, I do want to touch on, it's kind of building on some of the things we've talked about today around digital health. So this is a piece of Web3 that I'm especially excited about moving into the future, and thinking about democratized access to healthcare. I was especially excited when services like Teladoc and other telehealth medicines became available, where you could call a doctor and on a phone call have a doctor's appointment, maybe even get a prescription written if it was, within a certain category. You didn't have to go to a doctor's office. The Teladoc experience was also much cheaper, maybe as much as 30% of the cost of going in to see a doctor. And it's that access that I'm looking forward to in the future, is not only digital access, but as our technology improves, at-home testing improves, I'm hoping we could even do full diagnostics of ourselves in our homes and be able to enhance our health, without necessarily having to spend a lot of money in doctor visits. That's a future that I'm excited about. I don't know how long it will take to get there, but I think one of the positive things that has likely come out of our experience with the pandemic over the last 2 years is that it's accelerated technology and community in ways in 2 years that would have otherwise taken 10 years. Look how fast we got to a vaccine. Look how fast we got to at-home testing. Look how fast we pushed teledoc or telemedicine opportunities. So I think in terms of the broader future of Web3, what I'm especially looking forward to is democratization and access to experiences, access to knowledge, access to education that a majority of people might not otherwise have had access to.
Thank you so very, very much, Kimberly. I mean, wow, powerful indeed. Let's give a big clap there. And the word I take away is access for all. And of course, know yourself, but you have the ability to choose who it is you want to show up as, freedom to choose, liberation. I suppose the key to liberation is access, or the key to access is liberation, ? So I'm going to bridge that over to you now, Sharad, understanding that Taria is not with us, but thanking Adriana, Heather, who's left, our dear Ellie, and of course, Kimberly. Over to you, Sharad.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susan. Yeah. Thank you all. I think it's been a great session today, very enjoyable. We had a lot of fun, and there were a lot of takeaways, I'm sure. So let's give a round of applause to all in the room. And since Juan is recording this session, I think it's appropriate for us to show everybody our dance moves. So 3, 4, or 5, and let's get this on camera.
Come on, Adriana.
Audience, please join in. 3, 4, or 5 on your keyboard.
Adriana,
thank you, Javier. Thank you, Juan, for having us here.
I am here.
And do send us the recording of today's event and possibly a certificate of participation for our audience. And we will see you on the other side. I'm sure we'll be hosting more events. And thank you for joining us and investing your 60+ minutes with us. So I want to say bye to all. Thank you, Susan, for co-hosting this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Before we leave, I would like to
everyone.
point out that thank you, everybody. The round of applause for everybody being today with us here. For the certificate of attendance, please send me a DM on LinkedIn, and I will send you a personal link to claim your POAP. They will be not transferable and personally addressed to you only.
Thank you, Juan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
And
everybody.
Juan and Juan and Sharad, I think, could we just say as well that we have this fabulous webinar on Saturday that again talks about storytelling and how important it is to tell the very raw and real stories of life. And indeed, it speaks straight into healthcare and mental health, but through the lens of addiction. So do join us on Saturday as well if you can, 3 p.m. UK. Over and out.
Thank
Fantastic.
you all.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Have a good night.
Thank you
Thank you,
all.
everyone.
Bye.
Everyone. Big waves from the stage. Thank you, audience, for coming in the room. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. You can stick around if you want. The space is open anyway. But I appreciate it.